The Arab Spring blossomed across North Africa and the Middle East as old regimes were swept up by winds of change, fanned to a large extent by activists using social media like Twitter and Facebook. It all began in Tunisia. The so-called Jasmine Revolution there saw the overthrow of Tunisia's President Zayn El Abidine Ben Ali. Now, it started when a young street trader called Mohamed Bouazizi doused himself in fuel and set himself on fire in protest at police harassment. Now, that set off a wave of anti-regime anger, with the deposed president eventually forced to flee into exile in Saudi Arabia. In all, the UN estimates over 200 Tunisians have died in the unrest there. Even so, the Jasmine Revolution inspired and emboldened other disaffected people right across the region. In Egypt, for example, mass protests eventually led to the resignation of President Hosni Mubarak, ending his 30-year rule. He was forced to step down after 18 days of pro-democracy demonstrations by up to 1 million Egyptians, centring on Cairo's Tahrir Square. It's estimated around 850 Egyptians have died in the unrest there. Now, those changes in Tunisia and Egypt raised expectations that neighbouring Libya would be the next domino to fall and see the ousting of its long-term leader, Muammar Gaddafi. Well, as we've seen, Colonel Gaddafi has so far managed to hold on, despite a NATO no-fly zone enforced across the nation's skies and a rebel movement determined to bring him down. The death toll to date in Libya is somewhere in the several thousands, but precise figures are impossible to obtain. OK, further east now, the situation in Syria remains in deadlock as well. President Bashar al-Assad has promised reform after putting an end to the nation's 48-year-old emergency laws. But he's also delivered a brutal crackdown on pro-democracy protesters. Again, casualty numbers are difficult to verify. According to human rights groups, around 600 protesters have been killed there. OK, as the Arab Spring spread eastward, the small island state of Bahrain saw its own civil uprising against its monarch, King Hamad, who's a key ally of the United States. Weeks of protests in the capital Manama ended when the king imposed a state of emergency and brought in troops to regain control. 30 people are estimated to have died in the violence there. OK, now we'll take a look further south, and Yemen is another state still gripped by turmoil, with President Ali Abdullah Saleh refusing to stand down. Now, that's despite having previously committed to do so in exchange for immunity from prosecution. The ongoing violence in Yemen is said to have claimed scores of victims, and the toll continues to climb. Finally, in addition to all that strife, major protests have also taken place in Oman, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, and over in Algeria and Morocco in the west. As you can see, it's a region very much in a state of political transition.